There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door. Starts right now. Ready or not, so fling wide you heavenly gates. Prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. Yes, he was. And he was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he said, behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here. I want to show you some things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good day, whatever time it is you are listening here to this brand new edition of Open Up the Doors. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition, brand new edition of Open Up the Doors. And hey, do me a favor, let me know where you are listening from. I am streaming live over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. If you're over there on the Facebook page, please share this around into your various streams and invite people to open up the doors. If you've never liked my Open Up the Doors page, please like the page and join the family and the fun that we have over here on Open Up Doors. You can also follow me on these social media platforms. I'm on Truth Social at AJ White. I'm also on another platform called CloutHub at AJ White 777. I'm on some others too, but I mainly spend my time these days over on the Truth platform because that's growing by leaps and bounds. You can also email me at ajwhite at 777 at icloud.com if you'd like to correspond with me. And if you are outside of the Faith FM broadcast area, you can download the free Faith FM app. We have the app for your Android platforms, for your Apple platforms. Just find them at your respective app, outlet. We are Faith FM in Sag Harbor. Look us up there in Sag Harbor because there are other Faith FMs. You want to, just listen to great Christian programming here from the east end of Long Island. 24/7. If you'd like to be part of the program today, we'll be taking calls. Hopefully, we'll get to calls in the second hour. Write down the phone number, 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. If you would like to be a part of today's program later on in the program, write the number down, be the first one to call. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to interact with our audience as much as possible. So gear up and get ready and buckle up, folks, because there's a lot to buckle up about. All right, I think that does it for my preliminaries for the moment. I always, Lord help me here, there's so much going on. Sometimes I always struggle with what to bring forth on a weekly basis with so much going on and so many pertinent things going on. But this week has been a real firestorm of things, as I'm sure you're all aware of. But the writer of Proverbs, Solomon, who wrote most of the Proverbs, but the writer of Proverbs rightly observed that when the wicked rule, the people groan. There's a lot of groaning going on in our nation today. There's a lot of festering anger, sorry to say, that's getting ready to explode. There is legitimate anger over many things that every day law-abiding, rule-keeping Americans are really, they're at their wits' end over tolerating anymore. We're living in a season that anything explosive could be triggered so easily. It's not a good thing, but it's the reality of our times. And Americans, I really do believe the average, just law-abiding, everyday American, I really think we're so weary of this stuff that's going on. Everything from a corrupt and two-tiered justice system to the blatant hatred and disregard of this nation's Judeo-Christian foundation and value systems. From watching delinquents and criminals openly committing crime and violence and rebellion and anarchy in our streets, destroying life and property with impunity and without penalty, to even worse yet, that instead of being condemned by those in authority for these types of behaviors and actions, they are actually being embraced and emboldened by political leaders instead. Yes, multitudes of everyday, average, and normal people are groaning, and they are angry. As the proverb says, when the wicked rule, and we're seeing wickedness ruling all around us, the people groan. Solomon said in another place, Ecclesiastes 10 is the other place, there is an evil I have seen under the sun. We're seeing all this evil under the sun. And Solomon compares the evil that he's seeing under the sun. He says, there's an evil under the sun as an error proceeding from the ruler. Evil rulers are distressing. I'm laying all that out really as the foundational point of the things I want to share with you today. Because today I want to talk to you about the FBI raid on Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. I want to talk to you about its potential ramifications and the dangerous road America may be heading down. You know, the question being raised all week since this unprecedented and unnecessary raid on Donald Trump's home has been, have we become a banana republic? And the short answer to that is yes, my friends. It would certainly seem we are well on our way. I need to tell you that when I heard the breaking news Monday night that Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI, I'm going to be honest with you. The very first thought I had was, are we now in a Harpers Ferry moment? I'll explain what I mean by that in a few minutes. But quickly, the raid carried out on the Harpers Ferry Armory in Virginia by John Brown in 1859 is believed to be, by a lot of historians, the match that lit the fuse for the Civil War. But before I get to that, in a little bit, I want to share some thoughts on this outrageous abuse of power by the Biden DOJ. Because the raid on Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago is, make no mistake about it, it is an egregious abuse of power. And it was completely unnecessary from any legal standpoint. Now, the reasoning being given by the FBI raid on the former president's home, which again, this raid is historically unprecedented. It's being framed as that Trump was allegedly in violation of the Presidential Records Act. That's the narrative that's being put out there. It's a false narrative. It's a bogus narrative. They're saying that he took documents to his Florida estate. Now, under the law, the presidential documents are required to be preserved and should have been included in materials Trump handed over to the National Archives and Record Administration, NARA, when he left office. But the reality is that Trump was, in fact, cooperating with NARA, and it's even on the NARA website that they have been cooperating with Trump to obtain all the relevant historical documents. There was nothing that Trump was keeping back from them when you start digging in and looking at all the reports and all the facts that are coming out. But it begs the question that even if there was, that if the DOJ was actually concerned about something in particular regarding that Presidential Records Act, all they needed to do was issue a subpoena. Which, by the way, they did several months ago. Trump, in fact, back in June, voluntarily complied with a subpoena. So again, there was no justification for this raid. He was working. A report just came out this morning. I don't want to get into all the weeds of it, but there's a very thorough report that came out from John Solomon's Just the News that details how Trump was working with the FBI and NARA, walking them around his home, showing them, letting them go any place they wanted to go, just back in June. You're not hearing about that on the media, except today when John Solomon put it out. So the narrative they're using of a violation of the Presidential Papers Act is as weak an excuse as and an argument that can be used for this raid. Furthermore, in the past, violators of this Presidential Papers Act, and there's been many, have gone unpunished, and they have been quietly addressed. Because according to the legal beagles I've been hearing from, there is no criminality in the Presidential Papers Act. There is no mechanism of enforcement. And furthermore, in this case, regarding President Trump, regarding the issue of classified documents, it's the president himself who has the final say on what is classified and unclassified. He has the sole discretionary power to declassify anything he wants as president. And he did. Therefore, to say as many of the willful ignoramuses in the left-wing media are saying that Trump's in illegal possession of classified documents, it's really rather a moot point of no actual consequence, even if that was true, which no one's proven that it was. But again, regarding this alleged withholding of documents or classified documents, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just said the other day, the apparent political weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI is shameful. And it is. Attorney General Garland must explain why 250 years of practice was upended with this raid. Pompeo went on to say, I served on the Benghazi committee where we proved Hillary possessed classified info. We didn't raid her home. The raid on Trump's home, in fact, stands in stark contrast to how the FBI has dealt with all these similar allegations of mishandled classifications in the past. We've seen it through the years. I don't want to really take a lot of time rehashing so many things. I need to resist the temptation to revisit all of the last several years of every miscreant, corrupt political elitist getting away with every illegal political act under the sun. The list grows. James Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan, Peter Strzok, Andy McCabe. We've gone through all of these issues over the last several years. I'm resisting the temptation to go back over the illegitimately obtained FISA warrants used to go after an innocent man named Carter Page. The left is saying on the media right now that the DOJ had to have a legitimate reason for the search warrant for Trump's residence. Really? Really? Like they did with the illegitimate FISA warrant that they obtained to go after Carter Page? A warrant that was based on what they knew to be a bogus and made-up Steele dossier bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign? They used an illegitimate FISA warrant drafted up to go after an innocent man just to try and get to Trump. Who was the judge who signed off on that ill-gotten FISA warrant? We'll never know because it's a secret court process. The FBI has worked to cover up evidence of depravity, crime, and corruption on Hunter Biden's laptop, even after it was caught helping Barack Obama frame Donald Trump for Russian collusion. Russia, the Russian hoax, the illegal spying on Trump's campaign in 2016. it's hard not to go down this bunny trail of the past. But see, here's the point. The leftist media right now has memory hold all this past recent history and expects us to all forget that any of that happened. And they keep saying, no one's above the law. And if they had a reason to bust into Trump's home, it had to be a good reason. No. The FBI, the last several years, has proven that no, they don't have to have a good reason. They become sad to say, an organization, the Democratic arm of the SS. But I digress. But folks, this is alarming. It's exponentially getting worse, and people are beginning to see it. And it's a dangerous road we're on. To echo Senator Marco Rubio, he tweeted out just the other day, the FBI isn't doing anything about the groups vandalizing Catholic churches, firebombing pro-life groups, or threatening Supreme Court justices, but they find time to raid Mar-a-Lago when they didn't have to, because Trump was already complying and working with NARA, and they said so themselves. I just need to tell you, folks, that why does this bother me so much? And it should bother you. There's a lot of reasons. But the perversion of justice that is going on all around us, it makes my God-fearing spirit, my God-honoring blood boil. Because as Christians, we are to be concerned about truth and justice, about the equal application of laws, about equal justice under the law. And it's so obvious the last 5 or 6 years we haven't seen any of that. God's word tells us. David said, God spoke to me and said, he who rules over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. We ain't seeing any of that. God's word tells us in Deuteronomy, you shall appoint judges and officers in all your gates, which the Lord your God gives you, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. You shall not pervert justice. You shall not show partiality. I've gone through these verses time and time again the last few years. But this is exactly what we have in our Justice Department today. Injustice. It's the Department of Injustice. They have perverted justice. They do show partiality. If you're on the left side of the aisle, you get away with everything. But if you are on the other side of the aisle, if they consider you their political opponent, watch out. As the prophet Isaiah cried out, we look for justice, but there is none. Justice is far from us. Justice is turned back, and righteousness stands afar off. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no justice. People are so quick to say, especially Christians, oh, well, God raises up the government officials. Yes, he does. And he expects them to rule in the fear of God and justly. And if they don't, it displeases him. And the people groan because there's wickedness in high places. I want to tell you, before I go to a break, the real reason for this raid. Because there was absolutely no legitimate legal reason to break into Mar-a-Lago with almost 40 armed FBI agents and to rampage through the house. As I said, it's already been reported. Trump was working with government officials, turning over the papers they were requesting. Folks, I want to tell you what this is really about. This raid was nothing but political theater and a show for the purpose of further stigmatizing Trump and his supporters even further. I am quite sure that they are hoping to influence the elections in November. I am quite sure that they are hoping to damage all the Trump-endorsed candidates that have recently won in all their primaries. They're scared of the electoral revolution that may be coming. They're scared of the electoral electoral civil war that may be coming. And I will tell you, you could take it to the bank. They're hoping to damage Trump-endorsed candidates, and they're hoping to paint those who vote conservatively as the enemies of democracy, when it's actually they who are the enemies of democracy. Their real end game is to find a reason to stop Trump from being able to run again in 2024. That's what this is about. There is no doubt in my mind this raid was nothing but a political stunt to try and humiliate and further smear Trump in the eyes of the general public. And I want to tell you, it's highly doubtful that they're going to find anything of actual illegality or substance unless it was planted. And a lot of people are beginning to wonder now, was the FBI planting anything? Because they wouldn't allow the lawyers to go with them. They wouldn't allow, they had a search warrant in a sealed envelope, but they wouldn't let anybody see it. There's a lot of questions going on around right now. They told the people at Mar-a-Lago to shut down the security cameras. They didn't. They left them on, and now the DOJ is trying to sue for the film from the security cameras. Why? Where's the transparency in that? So now there's real concern that if they do find anything, can we trust them at all? I'll tell you right out, no. They have damaged their credibility beyond repair. It's all a charade. It's all a charade. As I said, it's a ruse to continue on the witch hunt, looking for any crime they can possibly drum up. As one lawyer I heard say, it's a search warrant in search of its own justification. The FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, my friends, is nothing but a grotesque and Stalinesque abuse of power by the DOJ. As Stalin's chief of the Soviet secret police, Lavrentiy Beria, once said, "Show me the man and I will find you the crime." But that's not how our justice system is supposed to work. That's not what is allowed under our Constitution. And though the left and the media pundits on CNN and MSNBC and the like, though the left is cheering and gleeful over this situation and incidents, folks, they are stupendously blind as to the grave and dangerous road this government is going down. Donald Trump Jr. tweeted out the other day, Biden's out-of-control DOJ is ripping this country apart with how they're openly targeting their political enemies. That, my friends, is their goal. It's almost as if they really do want a second bloody civil war so that they can justify oppressing Americans further. But I'll be back with more in a minute. I'm going to take a short mental break. Selah. Think about the things I just said. Here's Big Tent Revival. I want the real thing. Stick around, folks.
I want Jesus Christ without lies, disguise, and compromise.
I want the real thing. Big Tent Revival. Jesus Christ, he's the real thing. That song ends just so abruptly. Anyway, welcome back. Andy White here. You are listening to Open Up the Doors, Integrity in Broadcasting. Here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak. WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Praise God. I'm just looking at some of the comments over there on my Facebook stream. Hey, folks, God bless you all. Thanks for joining in. Please share this around if you're on Facebook. But I got to continue on here with my topic of the day, topic of the hour, topic of the week, topic that's going to really have a lot of ramifications, consequences in the days ahead. But as I said at the top of the broadcast, when I heard the breaking news that Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI, the very first thought I had was, are we in a Harpers Ferry moment? Now, I don't want to overstate the case by using an analogy and comparing this to Harpers Ferry. The Harpers Ferry raid of 1869 was a lot different, of course, in numerous ways. However, I do think there are some comparisons and analogies that can be made. But most importantly, there is a lesson to be learned and a warning to be heeded, especially regarding the intentions and the end results. And that's when I make the comparison, that's really what I'm talking about. What was the intention of the Harpers Ferry raid and what were the end results? Because, folks, make no mistake about it. There are, in fact, those both in and out of the federal government who want very much and who are actually fomenting and desiring a societal meltdown and even a civil war in order to advance their agenda. I've been saying for a long time now, what will finally light the fuse? What will be the modern day Harpers Ferry? For those of you who may not be historically up to speed on what Harpers Ferry was, let me give you just a little brief background. Harpers Ferry, Virginia, was the site of an 1859 raid. There's the operative word, a raid, on a federal armory led by a militant abolitionist named John Brown. John Brown was an icon and a hero in the North. He wanted to see slavery completely abolished, and rightfully so. He was fighting against slavery. He got to a point where in his mind he realized that slavery would never come to an end unless there was a war, unless there was a civil war. John Brown had gotten to a point in believing that there was no legislative way to end slavery. So John Brown put together his own little private group of insurrectionists, so to speak, because Brown wanted to initiate a slave revolt in the southern states by taking over the United States arsenal at Harpers Ferry. He wanted to make the arsenal, the armory there, his own little fortress, and he wanted to commandeer all the rifles and the ammo there and give it to the slaves so there would be a slave uprising. And he was hoping that the slaves in the area would find out. He had sent word out to meet him there. He was hoping that they would go there and join his insurrection. But the raid on the armory in Harpers Ferry was a raid gone awry. It was an immediate tactical failure. By the way, something that interested me when I was reading the background history on Harpers Ferry is that John Brown asked Harriet Tubman to join up with him and Frederick Douglass. Harriet Tubman didn't join in with the raid because of her health, she said, kind of hinting that maybe she would have, but she said she just couldn't physically. Frederick Douglass, very wise man. Love Frederick Douglass, one of my American heroes. But he turned down John Brown's invitation to join because he said attacking the armory in Harpers Ferry, Frederick Douglass said, is a suicide mission. It's crazy. And he was right, and Frederick Douglass refused to be a part of it. But the raid on the armory at Harpers Ferry was a raid gone awry, as I said. It was an immediate tactical failure. And that makes me laugh because just yesterday, I was seeing now how the FBI has been trying to backtrack a little bit with this raid on Mar-a-Lago, And just yesterday there was a report how FBI insiders are saying that this raid on Mar-a-Lago, quote, was a spectacular backfire. Yeah. A spectacular backfire. The raid on the armory in Harpers Ferry was a raid gone awry. It was a immediate tactical failure. However, here's the points. Here's the comparisons I'm looking at. Because again, it was John Brown's intention to start a civil war. And it was an intention that was realized just 2 years later after the Harpers Ferry incident. Harpers Ferry by historians has been called the dress rehearsal for the Civil War. It's been called the prelude to the Civil War. As I said a moment ago, Brown's attack was aimed at sparking a massive slave uprising, and the incident helped push the already divided country toward civil war. Once the news spread, it became a major news event around the country, displaying the growing rift and division of the nation regarding the slavery issue. Can you see some of the parallels here? The raid on Harpers Ferry caused more excitement in the United States than had been seen in many years at the time. It was extensively covered in the press nationwide. It was the first such national crisis to be published using a brand new electrical telegraph system, the wire services. When the news of the Harper Ferry raid was coming across the news wires, reporters were on trains leaving for Harper's Ferry all over the country after the news of the raid was received. And once word got out to the wire services of the day, the population in the North and the South heard what happened at Harper's Ferry. But here's the thing. It showed the population just how irreconcilably divided the country had become. And most historians do believe that Harper's Ferry was the match that lit the fuse for the Civil War that came later. Brown's intention was to provoke an increasingly heated situation. And I do believe that the raid on Mar-a-Lago, the intentions were the same. To provoke an increasingly heated situation that we've been dealing with in this country. January 6th, my friends, was not an insurrection. It was a protest gone out of control, and we've talked about that a lot. But January 6th, though it's being framed as an insurrection, was not an insurrection. But these malfeasant swamp creatures, I do believe, want to actually incite a real insurrection, in order to validate their own gaslighting and their own deceptions. So I ask the question rhetorically, are we in a Harpers Ferry moment in this country? Those intentions to incite civil unrest, those intentions to create societal meltdown. The left has been poking the bear and poking the bear and poking the bear and poking the bear. And when the day comes, when the bear pokes back, they'll blame the bear. Now, again, I want to be clear here. I got to be clear here, because I am in no way advocating in any way, shape, or form for a civil war. They are. We need to, especially Christians, we need to know what's going on and then pray for wisdom and pray for boldness and courage, and especially wisdom in these days in which we're living, how to navigate through these days. But like a watchman on the wall, I'm telling you what I'm seeing on the horizon and what I've seen through history and what I see right now in this present spirit of the age. So when I bring forth these things, I want you to be clear. I'm not advocating this. I'm reporting what's going on, both in the spiritual and in the natural, because we are in very troubling times. We really, truly are. And I keep coming back to this refrain in my mind since Monday night. Has America entered into a Harpers Ferry moment? Well-known lawyer Alan Dershowitz said the other day, using a raid like this is supposed to be a last resort. But this administration has used the weaponization of the justice system against its political enemies. Now, this is a guy who voted for Joe Biden, by the way, crazily enough. Alan Dershowitz is a liberal. He voted for Hillary. He voted for Obama. He admitted the other night he voted for Biden. Though I don't understand. Sometimes I just don't understand. Why would you, when you see what's going on in this country, when you see what these people are doing, Mr. Dershowitz, with all due respect, how do you keep still voting this way? I don't get it, but I digress. Nevertheless, Dershowitz said this administration has used the weaponization of the justice system against its political enemies. It has arrested people, denied them bail, put them in handcuffs, used all kinds of techniques that are not usually applied to American citizens. I just hope this raid has the justification. Well, it doesn't, and you know it doesn't. Because if it doesn't have the justification, the material seized in it will be suppressed. Folks, again, I'll say it, Biden's DOJ is out of control. And something that actually needs to be said in all of this is that the FBI has been acting this way for a very long time now. It's just that we didn't pay much attention to it. We didn't notice it all that much. We didn't notice because in the beginning, when we started to see these things happen, we just believed in the integrity of the FBI in former days. That if they were going after someone, it was for a good cause because they had earned our trust in the past. But this abuse now has been going on for at least a half a dozen years or more. We began to take notice of it a few years ago when it became increasingly apparent that they were doing very selective prosecutions and indictments, i.e. Hillary Clinton's server and all the things that she did that were illegal, that James Comey covered up. Only for us to turn around and see the unnecessary theater of the arrest of people like Roger Stone and Paul Manafort, and recently Trump's advisor Peter Navarro, because you see, they're on the opposite side of the political aisle. All of Trump's allies, all of Trump's close circle get prosecuted and get hunted down. All of the political opponents of the elite leftists in power. These men were all publicly shamed just to produce video footage for the left stream media to exploit and to gloat over because these people are on the opposite side of the political aisle. And it's just been getting worse. Since January 6, 2021, the sweeping up and the scouring of the country for those who simply happen to be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th has begun to open our eyes to the abuse of power and the selective prosecution and the trampling of citizens' constitutional rights that's been going on. The FBI has been raiding the homes of innocent citizens. I talked about an Alaska couple a few months back. They've been targeting the political enemies of Joe Biden. And who will hold them accountable? How does one stop the SS? The FBI is out of control. And America is in deep trouble. Because now they're also beginning to weaponize the IRS. I'll get to that a little bit later in the broadcast. But I've been saying for a long while now that the FBI ought to be renamed the SS, the Schutzstaffel, because the SS's mission and operations certainly have come to mirror the SS. I should say the FBI's mission. The FBI's, the way they've been operating, have come to mirror the SS of the 30s. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, go read up on the origin and the eventual mission assignment of the German Schutzstaffel. The SS was Hitler's personal police force for hunting down disloyal political opponents. I'm not going to get into the history of the SS right now. Go look it up. But I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, I don't know. Just perhaps, maybe, with this newest outrageous raid on Mar-a-Lago, maybe enough people will finally wake up to the monstrosity and the threat and the extremely corrupt DOJ and FBI that we now have. And trust me when I tell you this, folks, because it's connected. With the coming supersizing of the IRS, with a new 87,000 new employees they want to raise up, the IRS will become the biggest criminal, federal agency in America. What could possibly go wrong? This past March, the IRS purchased almost $1 million in ammo. Why? Why are they stockpiling? Why is the IRS stockpiling ammo and weapons? Well, we'll get to that when I come back. I'm going to take a break. Here's Rich Mullins' hope to carry on. You might be saying, why are you going to play? Folks, Yeah, I know I'm talking about this stuff. But you see, we do have hope to carry on. Come what may in the natural, come what may in this world. Again, our hope is in the Lord Jesus Christ. We know in this world we're going to have tribulation. We know in this world we're going to have trouble. But we don't hide our heads in the sand regarding it. We don't become so heavenly minded that we become no earthly good. But we do have a hope. Here's Rich Mullins. Hope to carry on. Stick around. We'll be back. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 Napeague, WEGQ 91.7 Quag. Coming up into the third block of the first hour. Hey, if you'd like to be part of the program later on, when we get into the second hour, write down the phone number, 631-725-2069. That's 631-725-2069. There's some great conversations going on over there on my Facebook live stream. Hey, you people over there, if you'd like to call in, I'm inviting you to come call in. Even if you've called in before, you can call in again. I like some of the things I'm seeing here on the stream. So if you'd like to share those with our audience at large, please call in the second hour. Let me do a little bit of some programming updates here. This first hour of the broadcast does re-air on Thursdays today at 3 p.m. So if you weren't able to catch the whole broadcast, or you had to move away from it, it will be on again this hour at 3 p.m. today, and also it re-airs on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Also, if you are just not able to get back to the radio, that's why we upload these broadcasts. We archive them both on my YouTube channel and my Rumble channel. If you've never subscribed to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel, please subscribe. You can find me over there on YouTube at Andy White Open Up the Doors. Just hit the subscription button. Need a drink of water here. Subscription button. And also the notification button. And you'll be notified when we upload these broadcasts. You can find me at Rumble at AJWhite777, and that's really becoming my main video platform because, again, they're more of a free speech platform, and Rumble tends to censor so many things and take videos down. So if you really want to see the whole video catalog, go on over to Rumble. I want to encourage you to subscribe to Rumble, subscribe to my channel over there if you never have. Alrighty, so let me see, how much time do I have left? I got a few minutes left, very few minutes left here in this first hour, but we will carry these thoughts over into the second hour and take your phone calls, as I said. But the other day, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, in commenting on the raid at Mar-a-Lago, said this, quote, "The raid of Mar-a-Lago is another escalation in the weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents, while people like Hunter Biden get treated with kid gloves. Now the regime is getting another 87,000 IRS agents to wield against its adversaries." He said that with a question, but it's becoming a banana republic. That's been the phrase of the week. Because according to the Inflation Reduction Act. Oh boy, could we do a whole broadcast on this one? But one of the provisions in this ill-defined, more spending, more inflationary spending, the wrongly titled Inflation Reduction Act, one of the provisions is $80 billion to be given to the IRS for funding to hire 87,000 more employees. It will more than double the IRS's current size. It will make the IRS, after they hire these 87,000 people, will have more staffers than the FBI, than the State Department, and the Border Control combined. And they will have armed agents. Now, why does the IRS need armed agents? They've been stockpiling. I just read this yesterday in the stats. The IRS has 4,500 rifles stockpiled. They have 500 million rounds of ammunition. Why? 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 Folks, I want to tell you, conservatives are being persecuted, and Christians are being persecuted, and it's going to get worse. Mark my words. We need to be especially worried regarding that. Not in the flesh, again, our hopes in Jesus Christ, but be aware of what's going on. Because the Biden administration, I guarantee you, the federal government are weaponizing tens of thousands of new agents against their political adversaries. And no one should forget what happened just a few years ago when the Obama-era Lois Lerner was going after conservative groups and Christian groups, denying them legal and rightful IRS exemption waivers and forms. These agencies, especially the IRS and the FBI, work together. The FBI just recently had a job notification on their website, and saying they were looking for special agents. And one of the requirements was that they must be willing to carry firearms and be willing to lethally shoot if necessary. I'm not kidding. It was on their website. There was such outrage about that quote-unquote requirement, be willing to lethally shoot someone, to use lethal force. They just took it down last night or this morning. But it was up there. We are really in very dangerous times. The prophet Ezekiel, speaking about the corrupt rulers in the land, said her princes in her midst are like wolves tearing the prey, to shed blood, to destroy people, and to gain dishonest gain. Walk circumspectly, my friends, because the days are evil. Don't be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And recognize that this day is a day of trouble, a day of rebuke, a day of blasphemy, as the prophet said to Hezekiah, and was told, lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. Lift up your prayers for your brothers and sisters. Lift up your prayers, as I said a moment ago, in these days in which we live for wisdom and prudence and guidance. I'm out of time for this first hour, but I'll be back. Stick around, for hour 2 is coming up right after the news. In the meantime, watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love, brothers and sisters. Stick around, I'll be back.